Hi, this is Greg Gate and Bob Eckman with Merchanier for another chat. First of all, I want to introduce not only the CEO of Merchanier, but a dear friend of mine, Bob Eckman, who started all this. And let's just give him some history first. Bob, how do you know about Merchanier, and why did you decide to get involved?
Well, thanks, Greg. And, it has been a lot of years that we've had a chance to work together in many different ways and appreciate your professionalism and, of course, your great friendship. But how this all took place is, after, spending about 38 years of in the hospitality sector, I ended up helping an individual as kind of part of one of my many retirements that I had. And I ended up helping a country music star open up a honky tonk bar on Broadway in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I live today. And ultimately, I met a couple of gentlemen, Butch and Clint Fair out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and they introduced me to the cash discount or discount for cash credit card processing platform. And I had never heard of it before. And honestly, I think I was an early adopter. And we ended up implementing it upon opening, and we ended up saving over $100,000 our first year.
Let me back up. When you said we've known each other for a few years, I just want to give the audience a placeholder for that. We met in '83. We met at a big resort in Lake of the Ozarks, Marriott's Tan Tara, and I remember the first time we met, you came down and said, I heard you're a softball player and you're putting together the team, and that's kind of how it all started. But I also want to give you credit for your recognition of talent when you decided to hire me full-time as a sales manager at Tan Tara when you became director of sales. So let's start there and truly give the audience what I'm trying to say, Bob. What is your hospitality background? Because that lends so much credibility to why Merchanier in this space is gonna be a rock star.
Well, in terms of recognizing talent, first of all, it was really because of your abilities in center field. Ended up hiring you as a center fielder, but that's okay. It worked out.
It did.
Yeah, I was with Marriott for about 10 years, mostly on property in hotels and resorts. Lake of the Ozarks, you had mentioned, Hawaii and Maui, Minneapolis, and others. And then started a company with another good friend of mine, Ed Doherty, with the Brickton Group out of Chicago. And he and I founded that company, and it was during the late 80s, early 90s, when, of course, the economy was suffering. And we ended up doing some business with banks and the RTC, and, it was tough.
Sure.
After that, though, I really started to understand the next level, which was in franchise sales and development. And I was hired on by, at that time, Holiday Inn Worldwide, which is today IHG,
Mm-hmm.
and started in franchise sales for handling a territory for 5 years, then became an RVP. We ended up hiring another guy that looks exactly like you. Right, it was you.
It was me, yeah.
You knocked it out of the park. And eventually, after 20 years with IHG, my last position was vice president of franchise sales for the mid-scale products in North America. I retired from IHG, not intending to retire permanently. My wife and I moved down to Nashville, Tennessee, and partnered with some music management people who kind of stumbled into hospitality and helped them out on the operational side and put together the management company, if you will, for an existing resort and then a development that was in Nashville on the north side. And part of that was Barbara Mandrell's mansion, a 33,000 square foot log home. And I know you've been there.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's pretty cool. But what happened was, and I, appreciate the two gentlemen that introduced me to Discount for Cash. They reached out to me actually this last summer and wanted to have some social distancing beers, and we ended up doing that. Asked me really what my background was and if I knew anybody in hospitality, and of course the answer is resounding yes. And they asked if I could help, And to make a long story short, I'm now the CEO of the company. We branded it Merchanier, and we're off to the races. We just became a platinum member of AHOA, and we've actually been processing some new business already. So it's really an exciting time.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, AHOA is Asian American Hotel Owners Association with 20,000 plus members and own it right around 60 to 65% of all the hotels that you see branded out there today. Quite a coup for Merchanier to cement that relationship. One of the things we wanted to talk about is the launching of our new newsletter called Processing Reimagined. And that's coming out here in the next week or so. Tell me more about the two gentlemen that you mentioned. Let's give them a name and their title and a little background.
So Butch Fair is the chairman. He actually was an All-American at Vanderbilt University in basketball and went on to play for the Phoenix Suns until he was injured. And this company, the parent company, FTH, is actually a three-generation company. And he was the second generation. Ray Fair was the first generation, and it was really a manufacturer's rep company.
Yeah.
Did an amazing job. And then as time went along, Butch hired his son, Clint, to take over the business. And Clint is now taking over that business. But, like a lot of companies kind of shift in terms of, what their business model is. And that's what happened here when they recognized the opportunity for a discount for cash platform and put the effort in, almost 2 years of effort, into creating the technology behind it, along with some amazing people that are just geniuses in the tech space. And to me, the product is amazing. It's a simple product. You can overthink it, and it's not necessary. But it really is an amazing opportunity for businesses to save those credit card processing costs.
Well, let me ask you, and you mentioned the two geniuses in the technology space, and when I talk about it outside of this podcast, I always mention that without the technology, this process wouldn't work. And initially, though, tell the listeners, what is a cash discount platform?
Well, in terms of credit card processing, it's a seamless an event that passes along the cost of credit card processing to the consumer. If they choose to pay by credit card, if they pay by cash, obviously the price is the price. Many people have experienced this in gas stations and throughout numerous industries, the government. Even if you pay your taxes, you have an option to pay, online or by check or with credit card. And many people pay with credit card, even though they're being charged an additional 5% because they get points or whatever the reason is behind it. And ultimately, we handle all that with a third party, and we end up saving the owner that 2.5% to 3% on the bottom line. Amazing.
You said passing it along to the consumer. What will the consumers say, or what are they saying?
Well, that's a really good question. And at that honky tonk, and I'll give you an example, now 3.5 years into it, the answer is not much. The consumer either doesn't notice, doesn't care, even more so, it's just a way of life.
Yeah.
We're a little bit older. We tend to carry, some cash in our wallet. I usually carry, no. This was just here because somebody paid me back on a bet. Anyway, but where was I? That was a good one.
You were talking about what the customers will say, and we know they're all going to use credit cards anyway. And us old people don't usually carry cash.
And we don't, so, you and I have been in line at, in the back of somebody at Starbucks, and, somebody's getting a lemon scone for, $3.50, and they pull out a credit card, and you're kind of going, you don't have $5 in your wallet? And
Right.
The truth is, no, they don't. They don't have $5 in their wallet. And I'm talking to more and more people. I used to think it was like 35 and younger. It's not. It's just a way of life, And what has happened though, Greg, too, is this has been an expense creep over time.
Yep.
Because 10, 15, 20 years ago, it might have been 40, 50, 60, 70% of revenue came through credit cards. It's now 60, 70, 80, 90.
Yeah.
And and in this world that we're trying to create a cashless society, I hope that never happens. Um, some businesses are 100%. So it's gradually crept up on the owners, and
Sure.
it's unnecessary.
Well, let me ask you this, as far as the owners, is this cash discount platform compliant for all businesses?
Yes. So it was the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act that
Okay.
actually started this, along with the Durbin Amendment from 2011. And the requirement is that it goes through a third party. Now, there's a lot of industries and companies that are using this today. They're not in compliant, but there's frankly not a lot of oversight by the government. I'm not sure that's not going to change with the new administration, but they're not exactly in compliance.
Sure.
So the requirement is that it does go through a third party. We are that third party. There's only a handful of companies that do this in the United States today. And we're probably the only one that has a significant focus in the hospitality industry.
Yeah. And if I'm someone in this industry and I wanted to get connected on the level in which you've established relationships in your past, and all the we could spend another hour talking about the people that have gone on from the positions that you and I have held at IHG and or Marriott, and where they are today, owning development companies, senior vice presidents, CEOs of brands, et cetera. And I believe one of the reasons Butch and Clint reached out for you, Bob, was that they weren't getting their calls answered. So when Bob Ekman calls and they say, "Hey, I've got something that would not only save you some money, but you can use this money in," let's talk about how some of these companies, and we don't need to name any companies, but let's use an example or two of how these owners of these businesses could have taken care of their employees, made improvements to their assets, or put it away for renovations. But what say you relative to, let's just say, if we started this last year, what could have this discount have done for these owners through COVID?
Well, they could have put it in their pocket. They could have retained employees. You say, there's a lot of people that had to be let go or furloughed. And it's, you kind of go, well, it's only 2.5 to 3%. Well, look at your P&L, right? What does that do to NOI? What does that do to valuation? It's significant. It's a significant amount of cash, and brands are starting to recognize it. Companies like Crystal Burgers, if you go at 3 o'clock in the morning, not that I'm up, but you might, go get your bag of burgers at 3 o'clock in the morning and use your credit card. It's going to say non-cash adjustment right on your receipt, and you will have, in essence, gone through the discount for cash platform experience.
Yeah. Bob, let's just, again, not mention a company or an owner, but let's just say an asset, a hotel, is generating $1.3 or $1.5 million in revenue. Because not everybody has a 180-room Marriott sitting around, but they have a lot of other brands, and I'll just throw it out there: Best Western, Red Roof, Choice has a whole plethora, Wyndham. What say you to those owners that have a couple hotels and one of them is at, let's just say, $1 million revenue per year? What approximately would that owner or that franchisee be able to put in their pocket?
Well, for every $1 million, it's about $25,000 to $30,000. And when you start adding it up, and I have with some, pretty significant hotel companies out there. There's one hotel company that I won't name right at the moment, but they have got about 4,500 hotels in the Americas, and that ends up being savings for the collective franchisees, plus the owned and operated properties, about $400 million a year. So that increases, collectively, again, it increases the valuation. If you're using a 10 cap valuation, for example, that increases the value of that collective portfolio by $4 billion with this little 2.5 to 3%.
Yeah, and you mentioned brands are aware of this, whether it takes another few months or not to go from awareness to acceptance or allowance. And you and I could debate whether the brands really need to allow it or not. Perhaps they do. Perhaps they just want that the power, so to speak. But if I'm a franchisee or I'm a hotel owner, how do they get started?
Well, first of all, I'm accepting all phone calls right now. And I'm spending a tremendous amount of time with the people that I know, relationships, etc. But if an individual is interested, first of all, our website is merchanier.com. So that's a pretty easy one to remember.
I know we've had a lot of conversation with a variety of hotel owners and franchisees alike, and the first question they've asked us is, well, what about my relationship with my existing merchant banker? And to that you say,
well, first of all, I say that's a great question. Basically, merchant banker agnostic. Yes, we use some more than others because frankly, we get better rates.
Sure.
But if a hotel company or a major restaurant company or management company uses a merchant banker, we'll use them. That's not a problem at all. So whether it's First Data or Chase or Bank of America or TSYS, I mean, there's really not that many of them that,
Okay.
frankly, they handle them on that level. So we'll work with, in terms of being agnostic, not only with the merchant banker, but with the bank processors too. We have our favorites, we have our own.
Sure.
But if somebody has a relationship, we're not going to disrupt that.
Absolutely. The other thing what I was attracted to is when I'm hearing you share the whys and the hows and the what of Merchanier, and I like the why. The why for me is, as an owner and a franchisee, the why would be you can create wealth and without taking advantage of anything. These are fees that could be and should be in your pocket to do whatever you want with. And yes, the consumer, the guest, the person checking in, the person drinking a beer or having a burger at your bar is going to be paying now the credit card processing fee.
And it's quite a minor amount. And
Yeah.
frankly, there is an option. It can go on a folio or receipt as a non-cash adjustment, or it could be included with your pricing. That's a little bit harder when you're in midstream of a business, if you're
Sure.
starting a business, or if you're, putting together new menus or a new rate structure. You might want to just include it, and then it doesn't show up on a folio or a receipt or anything like that, or invoice at all. But for the most part, if you're an active business, it'll probably be an additional charge, just like many others, whether it be a resort fee or additional
Yeah.
taxes or whatever. I mean, yeah, everyone's checked out of a hotel and went, "Oh, I stayed one night. How many pages is that?"
Right.
It's just an additional one at the very end. I just had one of my good friends send me a receipt. He goes, "What is this?" And he sent me a receipt from a dinner that he went out to the other night, and there it was, non-cash adjustment. And what he didn't know is we're the ones handling it.
Well, and I've seen, you and I have been at a few resorts in our days, and we check out, and there's a 22% or 18% resort fee, and that's all there is. And then when you ask, well, what is the resort fee? They basically say, for the pleasure of staying here. I mean, it's amazing, but there's nothing really being done. And as you know, some of the states are saying, no, that's not going to be allowed anymore. But everybody is using a credit card, and you and I have joked around about this. And yes, there's a cash adjustment, or you can get a discount for cash. But at the end of the day, people want their points. They're not carrying cash. No one's going to check out of a Hilton after staying for 3 nights at $229 plus food and beverage, and paying cash, unless they're carrying around as much cash as you typically do. If you want to wave that around a little bit more, that'd be great.
Oh, this little thing?
This little thing. Yeah, we'll have to talk off camera as to what kind of bet that was, or what you won. You said you're in Nashville, not Las Vegas, correct?
Right. I can't. If I was in Vegas, it'd be much thicker.
Yeah. Well, I won't bring up those memories. Anyway, last question for you, Bob. How long does it take to implement the platform, and will there be any downtime? I know you've addressed it, but let's just hit it head on.
Yeah, there's very little downtime. There's no disruption. There's no upfront costs either. I mean, it's, and you and I talked about this, Greg, but for the audience, how often are you presented with an opportunity in life where you're selling something that doesn't cost the consumer or the person buying it anything. I mean,
Right.
literally zero. And all you're doing is saving them money.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you and I were working together at IHG, and we were in the franchise sales and development arena. It was the application, 8 pages, financial statements, and then it goes through franchise admin. Then we present it to a big committee, and you may or may not get approved. And then there's a license agreement, was 38 pages, if I remember correctly. And that's after you were notified with a big, thick document. And again, I just want to recognize that it is simple. And as I told a friend of mine driving over to the studio this morning, is try it. Just give us 5 of your hotels. See what it feels like, and see if you don't see the intelligence behind it. And then they said, well, what if my guests get upset? I said, well, what happens when they check into a room and it's dirty? What happens when they want to be moved because the person next door is too loud? It's called guest service. Explain the situation to them. And remind them that if you'd like to pay cash, you can, and you'll get a discount. If you'd like to use your credit card, which 90% of us do, then these are the rates. Now, I don't know that there's a fear of losing business, but to stay competitive, it's right in front of you.
Yeah, and cash is cash or a PIN debit card or even a gift card. So if you're in the restaurant business, there's gift card. That's cash too.
Well, you mentioned something I think is worth going back, is you mentioned a pinned debit card, which is the same thing as someone carrying around their bank account. We all know what a debit card is. So for those listening, if you don't want the miles and you want the discount, you can use your debit card with a PIN and you still get the cash discount, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That is in essence cash.
It is.
But I'm here to tell you, if somebody has a debit card in their wallet and a credit card in their wallet, both at the same time, they're going to go, here's my credit card.
Absolutely.
95 times out of 100, that's going to be what they do because they're earning points. I mean, everybody is right now kind of going, well, I can't wait for my next vacation. Well, it's been a year now. So there's a lot of pent up demand from that perspective. And again, it's just a way of life. People paying with credit card is a way of life.
Absolutely. Bob, I'm excited to be part of this. And when you first reached out, it honestly, it sounded too good to be true. I thought about, what is the guest going to say? I overthought it. And then when more we talk, more I see the professionalism behind Merchanier, the owners, yourself included, the conversations that I've been able to hear with Jeremy and Ella, who are the techies behind it, and the consolidated statements. I mean, people are probably unaware that they get one statement for Merchanier and has all the credit card vendors on it. What else could a person want?
It's like 2 or 3 pages long compared to the stack of the statement that you get with each one of the credit card companies from the merchant banker. I mean, you have to hire a CPA, just to go through it. Oh, by the way, too, because we're the ones handling all this, it also, pulls some stress and maybe even some expense off the company or the corporate entity's accounting department too.
Yep, accounting and finance. Accounting and finance people are going to help business owners see the benefit through what you just said. Bob, thanks again. It's been a great conversation with you about the exciting pieces of Merchanier and what it brings, and I love what you've come up with the processing reimagine, or how we can help people save money through the credit card processing. And I don't know about you, but I've really enjoyed our chat today, and I appreciate you.
Well, thanks. And we'll have others, and we'll have some other people on as well. Thank you so much, Greg.
More the merrier. See you soon.